What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 predictions for the upcoming 2024 college football season. The Virginia Tech Hokies are up next. Virginia Tech coming off a 7-6 year last year in 2023, so a pretty average and also a pretty solid season for Virginia Tech, definitely compared to the year before in 2022, or they had really a disappointing year that year. But my thoughts on this team, though, for 2024, I am very high on this team. You look at the roster, plenty of experience coming back on both sides of the football. The offense has a chance to be not one of the best offenses in the country, but just really overall pretty good. A lot of experience there. You got your starting quarterback coming back. Almost everybody is returning on the offensive side of the football, and then defensively, a lot of experience coming back there as well. So this is a Virginia Tech team, in my opinion, that could be a dark horse contender in the ACC, and they also have a pretty favorable schedule this year as well. So let's go ahead and get to that schedule now for 2024. This is the schedule here for Virginia Tech. Again, they were 7-6 last year in 2023. So let's now go game by game and give you a record prediction here for the Hokies for 2024. And they start things off with a Power 4 non-conference game on the road at Vanderbilt on August 31st. Very interesting non-conference game here on the road at Vanderbilt against one of the worst teams in the SEC now over the course of the years. I think going into this game, Virginia Tech might be the favorite here in this one. They could be like an 8-point favorite and maybe like also a double-digit favorite just based off of what Vanderbilt's been like now for like the last few years. And you know, Virginia Tech definitely has a more experienced roster. Maybe Vanderbilt does compete in this game just because they're playing at home, but I think Virginia Tech is definitely the better team here. I wasn't really back and forth on this game. I think Virginia Tech, with all the experience that they have coming back and all the veteran players they have coming back as well, I think they go on the road and beat Vanderbilt here. Not by a blowout, but I feel like they can win it by at least maybe like 10 points, somewhere in that range. Maybe by a touchdown as well. So I think it will be a close game. I think Virginia Tech definitely is clearly the better team here and definitely the more experienced roster as well. So I got Virginia Tech starting out 1-0, but then they take care of business against Marshall there on September 7th. And then they take care of business on the road here at Old Dominion. I know a couple of years ago Virginia Tech lost on the road at Old Dominion, but I think they'll definitely be ready for this one this time, and they're definitely the more better team here. So I got Virginia Tech starting out 3-0, and then they play another Power 4 non-conference game against Rutgers here on September 21st. They played this team last year on the road. This time they play the Rutgers here at home. I really can't remember if Virginia Tech beat them last year. I think Rutgers actually won the game, and the Rutgers actually were a very big surprise team last year, so I do expect a very competitive game in this one, more competitive probably than the Vanderbilt game, and it really comes down to the wire. But I think Virginia Tech playing at home, it's a very tough place to play for the Rutgers at home against Virginia Tech and everything. So with that being said, Virginia Tech, the more experienced team, they win this game in a really close one. So I'm going to go with the Hokies there, and that puts their record now here at 4-0. And then they open up conference play here on the road at Miami here on September 27th. Of course, this game will be on a Friday. Miami is going to be a very talented team. They also have a lot of experience coming back on both sides of the football. They got, of course, Cam Ward, the transfer quarterback, coming over from Washington State. So this will be a very interesting matchup. I did talk about this game. Virginia Tech definitely has a chance to probably pull off an upset here. It's one of those weeknight games there that we've seen in the past really pull off some upsets, of course, in the past as well. So this could be one of those tricky games here for Miami, but Miami is playing at home in this one. I really was back and forth on this game when I did my Miami video, so with that being said, I already chose Miami to win this game. So I think Miami does give Virginia Tech their first loss here of the season. Again, it's just one of those tough games to call when Miami's got a very talented roster, and then Virginia Tech has a very experienced roster as well. So I think Virginia Tech loses that game in a close one on the road, and that puts their record now here at 4-1, so that's their first loss of the season. And then they go on the road to play Stanford here on October 5th. Not really that high on Stanford this year. Don't really think they're going to be good, even though it's on the road. I think Virginia Tech definitely will bounce back here after the loss to Miami. Stanford, again, second-year head coach. We don't really know how good they're going to be. The future is really just not there for them just yet. So I think Virginia Tech goes on the road and beats Stanford here, and they get a bounce-back win after the loss to Miami from last week, so that puts their record now at 5-1. They get a bye week before playing at home against Boston College on October 17th. This game, of course, will be on a Thursday. Virginia Tech, I think they're definitely the more better team here. Boston College might be a little bit good this year, but, Virginia Tech playing at home, that should be a pretty easy win here. I know this is a weeknight game, but, Virginia Tech gets a bye week here before playing this game, and that definitely will help them out. So I think Virginia Tech dominates here, and that puts their record with a 6-1 record after the win over Boston College. And then after that, they'll play at home against Georgia Tech here on October 26th. This is going to be a very competitive game. I think it will be a close game here between these two teams. A good amount of experience coming back on the Georgia Tech offensive side of the football. Defensively, you do have some question marks there for the Yellow Jackets, but Haynes King is a pretty good quarterback for Georgia Tech. I think this Georgia Tech team actually will compete in this game, but it won't be enough. Virginia Tech is playing at home in this one. They're definitely the more experienced team as well. So I think Virginia Tech wins 3 games in a row. They beat Georgia Tech here on October 26th. So that puts their record now here at 7-1 going into the month of November. Starting in the month of November, they do play on the road here at Syracuse on November 2nd. Definitely a big trap game here in the month of November to start things out here in the month as well. And, Virginia Tech is coming into this game at a record of 7-1. They got Clemson the next weekend, so maybe Virginia Tech is a little bit overlooking Syracuse and definitely focused on the Clemson game from next week. And I think that's what's going to happen in this game. Virginia Tech won't be focused on Syracuse. Plus, this game is on the road. It's a very tough place to play. Syracuse also has a lot of experience coming back as well, and they also added a ton of additions in the transfer portal, so this won't be an easy game here for Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech is definitely like the more better roster here, but I think Syracuse playing at home, it's a very tough one to call when you got two really well-experienced teams going at it here. And again, I think Virginia Tech definitely overlooks Syracuse going into that Clemson game from next week. So I think Virginia Tech, they lose to Syracuse here. Syracuse pulls off the upset. Virginia Tech might be ranked in the top 20 by this point, maybe the top 15 as well. So I think Virginia Tech does lose here on the road at Syracuse, and that gives them their second loss here this season since that Miami game back on September 27th. And then after that, there's the big game at home against Clemson here on November 9th. Like I mentioned, I think Virginia Tech will be focused on this game more than the Syracuse game from last weekend. They come out really fired up for this one. It's going to be definitely a sold-out crowd here. Virginia Tech is playing at home in this one, and I've already done my Clemson video, and I did choose Virginia Tech to pull off the upset. And again, that's what I'm going to go with here. I think Virginia Tech playing at home, they come out really fired up. And also, with the experienced roster that they have and everything, that's really going to help out this Virginia Tech team to pull off an upset against Clemson. So I think Virginia Tech pulls off the win here, and they pull off the upset and beat Clemson here on November 9th. And like I said, they're not really focused on that Syracuse game the last weekend, but they're definitely focused here on this game against Clemson the weekend after the Syracuse game. So I think Virginia Tech beats Clemson there, and that puts their record now at 8-2. They get their second bye week here of the season before playing Duke here on the road on November 23rd. Duke lost their head coach. Don't really know how good this team is going to be. Maybe they're better by this time here in the month of November. So maybe they do give Virginia Tech a scare. Maybe Virginia Tech comes out really slow after a big win over Clemson, but they get a bye week before playing this game, so I think Virginia Tech wins this one. They pull away from Duke after a slow start, so that puts their record now here at 9-2. And then the final game of the season is at home against Virginia on November 30th. This will be a home game here for the Hokies. It's always a pretty interesting rivalry game here between the Cavaliers and the Hokies as well. This will be a home game here for Virginia Tech. I think they're definitely the more experienced team, but also Virginia has a lot of production coming back, so this is two really well-experienced teams, but Virginia just doesn't really have the talented roster just like Virginia Tech does. So this might be a really tough one here for Virginia, but I think it will be a very competitive game to say the least. I mean, it's obviously a rivalry game. Anything can happen here in these types of rivalry games, but I'm going to go with Virginia Tech here because they're playing at home. They really come out fired up in this one, and they do beat Virginia here at the end of the season on November 30th. So I got Virginia Tech winning their final game here of the regular season against Virginia. So I got Virginia Tech finishing with a record of 10-2. I know that sounds crazy, but I think this is a schedule that really sets up nicely here for Virginia Tech, because if you look at this schedule, they don't have like a really tough non-conference schedule. Yes, they play Rutgers and Vanderbilt, two games that they can probably lose and probably go 8-4, but they got Miami on the road and Syracuse on the road. Those are definitely their toughest road games here on the schedule. Miami probably the toughest road game on that schedule, but you don't have to play North Carolina. You don't have to play Louisville. You don't have to play also Florida State. You do avoid those teams, and you also don't have to play NC State. You get Clemson at home. This is a Virginia Tech team, like I said, is going to be a dark horse contender in the ACC, and they also could probably make the ACC championship with this record. We'll just have to wait and see what the final standings look like based on my predictions, but 10-2 is my prediction here for Virginia Tech. I don't really feel confident with this prediction, but I'm going to go with it here just because the experience that they have coming back this year. So that is my prediction here for Virginia Tech. Again, it's 10-2 here for 2024. So let me guys know what you think about this Virginia Tech team down in the comments below. What do you think their record will be for 2024? Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.